They will cut your favorite Pokemon out of the game. They will make the graphics look shitty. They will give you a free camera after 20 years. They don't give a fuck about what you want in the game, personally. Let's talk about GameFreak, Pokemon, and lack of ambition. This is a huge running problem that needs to stop. All right. The recent issues with the whole National Pokedex debacle have only been debacle. With the whole National Pokedex debacle have only been the tip of the iceberg when it comes to problem with the Pokemon series. Fans have always waited for the home console mainline game, having probably huge hopes about them. It's just normal that this time around, excuses won't be holding too well. I've been reading up a lot of discussions these last few hours, and I'd like to discuss about a few topics. Hopefully, I format this well enough to make it bearable. Okay, so right off the bat, it seems like we're going into more of an observational type of post, right? Okay. 3D models and animations. This one has been brought up a lot since, the excuse of not putting in every Pokemon supposedly is to focus more on the already existing ones. This is already false. I stated something like this too, but it's really easy to get caught up in this, but this is not true. Right? This is not what they said in the interview. They said that because of time constraints and development constraints, they couldn't put the Pokemon in. Right? That doesn't necessarily mean that their focus was to focus more on 3D models and animations. That's not what they said. But okay, let's continue. So let's remember first that it's a fact that GameFreak is not making any new models for old Pokemon. I mean, they were all made during the development of X and Y in a way that would make them future-proof. At most, they'll be adding a few new animations here or there, but obviously glaring issues like this still won't be fixed. And then we have this video example. Yes. Obviously, this is something that I said too, right? I would have been okay with them going way harder on the decision to cut out more animations or to cut out even more Pokemon and go super hard on like sick animations, right? But I mean, okay. The particle effects are good here, right? But the type of animation is not changed from like X and Y. I agree with this, right? This is bad, in my opinion. Like, this should be changed. Remember, even without considering the fact that this is the highest grossing media franchise to exist, the budget to develop Pokemon games could be high enough to afford to reanimate every Pokemon for every game released. Citation needed. I mean, they did model hundreds of Pokemon for X and Y games with a mobile budget, so they would definitely be able to afford proper animations. Again, citation needed. Yes, for every Pokemon. And as for adapting the already existing models to fit every Pokemon in, I don't know how much you know about game development, but it's not that difficult. The game wouldn't really need to be delayed 1 year if they ended up putting in every Pokemon because most of the work designing, modeling, balancing has already been done. Just get a couple developers on it and in 1 month they'd have every Pokemon in. I agree with this, but me and both the poster of this, the author of this post know that Nintendo knows this. Like, I really don't think that simply like being like, okay, we'll just throw money and like another month at the problem. If that was an easy solution for Nintendo, they would have done it, right? They have a tight release schedule, right? They need to get the game out at this very date. Nintendo is a publicly, I will state this multiple times while I go over this post, Nintendo is a publicly traded company that has a responsibility to its shareholders to make profits, right? And to maximize those profits. And in the end, any decision that they make on these games is going to be to maximize profits. That's just a harsh reality of this. They're not like an artist that can just take forever and make like a good game. They actually have to fucking deliver products, right? They're a company that makes products, right? And if they think a decision will impact sales in a way where they will lose out on profits, then they're probably not going to make that decision. Just get a couple of developers, just do it in a month forehead. Yeah, like, I don't know. This person postures like he knows a lot about game development, but he doesn't seem to know a lot about, like, the business side. Does that excuse bad games? It doesn't excuse bad games, but it explains it. Again, I will reiterate what I said on Twitter yesterday. It's completely fine to understand why these decisions are being made and also be upset about them. I'm upset about the fact that there is no good like 3D animations, that there is no cool like updates to animations now that we have the first home console game, and that the overworld textures look at this shit, right? But that doesn't mean I don't understand why this decision was made, and it's about shifting the blame on the correct person, right? All right. So again, like, you can understand why these decisions were made. The problem is when you shift blame on the developer rather than other things, but we'll talk about that in a bit, right? Quality of graphics. Another huge disappointment. Back when Let's Go was announced, I was immensely let down by how it looked the same as Sun and Moon. It does not look the same as Sun and Moon when upscaled on emulator. But I understand where he's coming from here. I'm being a little bit bad faith here. I understand where he's coming from. I had the same complaint. But hey, everyone was saying how it was just temporary, how they didn't spend too much on making those games because Gen A was the big one, and now we still have games that look like upscale 3DS ones. 100% I disagree. I'm super disappointed with this. This sarcastic post shows it quite well. The landscape is so colorful. Look at the attention to detail. Fantastic. Look at this attention. Some of the scenery is breathtaking. Oops, I accidentally included a screenshot of a 9-year-old Wii game. How do I delete? New animations are smooth. I love how the graphics really pop. Jesus Christ. Yeah. I will 100% defend this point of view. I don't know how people are on Twitter and other social media saying the game looks beautiful. I do not know how low these guys' expectations were, but the overworld in this game looks fucking garbage. It looks so goddamn fucking bad. I mean, like, to be fair, a screenshot is different than looking like at a GIF like this, right? Like, honestly, in this, it doesn't even look that terrible, but it still looks fucking terrible. And there's still going to be moments in the game where you literally see fucking this. And I don't understand it. When you compare this to, like, Mario Odyssey, when you compare this to, like, Breath of the Wild, I don't know if those games had a similar budget to this, and I don't know if the comparison is fair, but it's just, it's about expectation versus reality, because this was not what I was expecting out of Gen 8. Colors can look really washed out. The wild areas look like they lack a lot of detail, and Pokemon just pop in right when the camera is looking at the point they've spawned from. And let's not even comment on the animation for Wingulls, which just float in the air without flapping their wings. Isn't this what Wingulls always do? Isn't this literally its hasn't this literally always been? This is a super petty point. The game could do so much more to look good with its art style, but it really seems like GameFreak would just settle with this. These are the points that are extremely contentious in this post, in my opinion. But we'll go over this when we finish it. All I'm thinking is, why are they telling us there won't be a National Dex 5 months before release, maybe 2 or 1 month when they will understand, but they seem us being mad and they can squeeze animations out in a 5-month span. That's not how game development works. What? They need to like ship the game out in like 2 months. The game's like done, dude. You can't just add in new animations in like the last couple months of development. That's not how it works like at all. The game could do so much more to look good with art style, but it really seemed like GameFreak would just settle for this. Like, okay. It's a huge disappointment, especially after games with locations as beautiful and detailed as Breath of the Wild or Xenoblade 2 came out of the same console. Yeah, I agree. Day 1 patch. I don't know. It seemed like from the statement that they made that this is like a major policy change about Pokemon games going forward. I don't know if there's going to be a patch. We'll see. Okay, next point. Everything is surface level. What do I mean? Take the new wild areas. Everyone's going crazy about them, and they do have a lot of potential, but they need to be handled well. What if they just end up being huge empty spaces, seems like it from what we've seen so far, by the way, with Pokemon wandering around, and no secrets or incentive to actually explore? Arguably, the secret or incentive to actually explore is finding wild Pokemon, right? Like, that's already inherently in the game. And didn't they also mention you could find items there and shit? I don't remember. Will GameFreak actually make them interesting, or will they do the bare minimum to say, hey, look at the new shiny thing and be done with it like they've always done? Mega Evolutions, Z-Moves, Dynamaxing, these are known as gimmicks, and for a reason. They add them in as all as You can use them only once per battle, and forget about them after a bit. But really, what do? They make your Pokemon a bit better. This is such a stupid statement. You could say the same thing about like evolution in general in Pokemon. Like, the idea of megas is fucking fantastic. Like, it's literally what like 10-year-old me fucking dreamed of and made like OC characters of. And shit like that. Like the to say that Mega Evolution is a gimmick and a bad design is really bad faith, in my opinion. I think Dynamaxing falls more into this because Dynamaxing doesn't actually have a original design associated with the Pokemon. Now, are some Megas badly executed? Yeah, I agree. But to say they lack depth is not true at all when you have Pokemon with like interesting Mega Evolutions with interesting abilities like Mega Sableye and shit like that. What if a Mega Evolution changed some moves into others, for example? They do that with abilities, right? And the ability, there's literally megas that do this. Mega Altaria changes Altaria's return into a fairy type move. Literally, this already exists. Guess we'll never know since the whole mechanic has been abandoned. Now, I can agree with that I wish they took a core mechanic and they didn't abandon it after a generation, but rather expanded on it. I 100% agree with that. I 100% agree with that. Yeah, that's what happened to abilities. That was what happened to held items after Gen 2. Held items in Gen 2 were pretty whatever, but after like Gen 4, Gen 5, excuse me. Yeah, I didn't have to sneeze after all. Held items became fantastic, right? Same with abilities. Abilities were like okay in Gen 3, but after Gen 4, Gen 5, Gen 6, abilities were fantastic. And then even Gen 7, they were expanded on even more. So yeah, I agree with this. If they took a mechanic and they expanded on it more and more, they would be better. I agree, yeah. Only having Mega Evolutions for like 2 games, I wish they had it for longer. But honestly, I thought Z-moves were okay, and then Dynamax just looks hella dumb. Why should I care for Dynamax if all it does is give a boring stat boost and it'll be thrown away in Gen 9? Yeah, I can agree with this. GameFreak needs to stop throwing things away instead of building upon what they released. Yes, I agree with this. This is a good point. I agree with this 100%. This seems to be a game design philosophy that I don't actually really understand. I agree with this. I think one of the problems is you can't, if you have a 20-year-old battle system that you build upon and build upon and build upon instead of revamping it from the bottom up, eventually you have too much shit to build on and you have to start taking stuff away. And I think that's kind of what's happening here. I think that's the problem. That's the hole that GameFreak have dug for them. And I think from a game design perspective, this comes back to what I was saying earlier, is that if you take away a lot more Pokemon than they have so far and focus on a very set amount of Pokemon, you can do way cooler shit with them. And that's why I don't understand why Dynamaxing is in the game. Pre-battle mechanics versus in-battle mechanics. I don't know if that's necessarily a good way to categorize them. Because in a sense, giving your Pokemon a Mega Stone is also an out-of-battle mechanic, right? Or a Z Crystal. Limited Dex should be really answering competitive battles. I mean, you don't know that. Maybe it's super unbalanced. I mean, like, also, this isn't a good argument for having a limited Dex, right? You can still limit the competitive format without limiting the National Dex. It's what happened the first season. Like, literally the first season of every competitive season is regional Dex, right? Like, this has always been a thing. Also, most people who play the game aren't interested in competitive. It's more fun to set up abilities, moves, items beforehand than just see how things play out. I mean, you would do that with an ability too, though, right? I don't think the comparison holds, or I don't think that categorization holds up real time. That's very, very, like, there's abilities that only, like, work out in battle sometimes, right? Z-moves didn't need a held item to use, yes. They should have stopped at Mega Evolution. Well, the thing is, too, and this is what we're going to get into later, it's very obvious that there seems to be a demand to have a flashy, cool new gimmick every generation. And you might disagree with this because the Twitter sphere just wants like, oh, just give us a new type or give us this or give us that. But the reality of it is that Game Freak is making a flashy new gimmick every generation because that's what the market demands. But we'll talk about that in a bit. Okay. Always the bare minimum effort. Honestly, Pokemon fans must be among the fandoms with the lowest expectations and for a reason. Why are all NPCs still super stiff with animations, moving and turning as if they were in a grid and couldn't perform 2 actions at a time? Why does no one expect a smaller side missions and side stories you could participate in during the main story? Why was Let's Go's lack of difficulty options justified with it's for new players, when a choice between a new player mode and experienced player mode wouldn't have hurt any newbie? Well, I mean, it would have cost development time, right? Why is lag during battles still expected? Why is a more involved exploration... Dude, the lag in Let's Go is so bad. In those double battles with Jesse and James, Jesus Christ. Why is a more involved exploration-based overworld, including more actions like jumping, not requested? Because that's never what Pokemon was about. What I'm saying is the Pokemon series doesn't need to try and be something it's not, but all these improvements would only make the game more fun, and yet every fan is so used to GameFreak's lack of ambition that nobody even has expectations anymore. It takes something crazy like removing half the Pokemon to make people mad. Yeah, okay, so I can agree with a certain point here. I don't understand how people point to a free camera, like a free camera movement, and are like, holy shit, this is sick. Because that says a lot about how Game Freak has conditioned us to these releases, right? If you look at literally a function that's been around since the N64, that's been around since, wait, when did Mario 64 came out in 1996, right? So a free camera movement has been around for 4 months longer on Nintendo games than the Pokemon franchise literally has existed. And people are freaking out about this function. And I understand that the previous games were on mobile and a free camera movement has really not been a thing, but Let's Go wasn't on mobile. The 3DS had that little thing. The new 3DS had that little thing to allow for a free camera movement, right? Or even a touchscreen. Mario 64 DS. Mario 64 DS had a free camera movement involved with it. I'm sorry, the Pokemon franchise has been around for 4 months longer than Mario 64. Yes. I don't understand how people look at that and they're like, that's a sick feature. That has me excited. Because that's literally to be expected. That's literally to be expected, right? It's been a feature for more than 20 years in games. And it's only in a specific area. I don't understand it. I'm sorry. Look, I'm sorry if I wrote so much. I just thought I'd take the chance of the community being actually mad. Okay. So here's my problem with this post. Apart from a few petty complaints, I think this post makes a lot of good observations, but I think the conclusion that it draws is incorrect. Listen, okay? Here's the reality of it, okay? Game Freak is not like this all like omnipotent thing that can just put out whatever game it wants and it just doesn't care about you, so it gives you a subpar product, right? Nintendo, the publishers of this game, and the people who put literally their name on this product, is a publicly traded company, okay? They're a publicly traded company, and they need to maximize their profits, okay? And they will do whatever it takes to maximize their profits. They will cut your favorite Pokemon out the game. They will make the graphics look shitty. They will give you a free camera after 20 years. They don't give a fuck about what you want in the game, personally. They give a fuck about what the market wants and what will make them the most money. All right? So to sit here and pretend like Game Freak is just doesn't, like, all of a sudden doesn't care about you and gives you subpar products because they're lazy or whatever, it's not true. It's just that what the market demands does not line up with what you want. That's the discrepancy here. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Vote Bernie Sanders in 2020. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Like you talk about them needing to have more have mechanics that have more longevity and not abandon something for something new every game. But that's literally what Game Freak has found out the market demands of them, is that they have a flashy new thing in their games, because otherwise their games won't sell enough. Because you might sit here thinking, well, you know, I think that maybe if they did this, they'd be making more money. But I can guarantee you that Nintendo has considered it. I can guarantee you that Game Freak has considered it, because they have literal dozens of professionals that work in their marketing and sales department every single day to figure out what will make their company the most money. And every option that you're considering in your head right now, they've already considered. They've already considered it. And yes, Nintendo is sometimes out of touch with the world, but the harsh truth is that this like hardcore fan base that you find on Reddit, that you find on Twitter, of like 20 or like of like 18 to 25-year-old Pokemon players, that's not their target demographic. They don't give a fuck about that, because that's maybe 10% of the people who buy those games. Maybe it's 20%. But most people who buy these games are not you and don't think like you. So that's what they have in mind. This is probably one of the better write-ups on the situation, and you make a lot of good points. The Mega Evolution shit is really the thing that pisses me off. It was a good concept. Was it perfect? No. Did everyone like it? No. It was something they could have built upon, though. They could have done a lot with it and built it on it more and more. Instead, they just throw it away because, and let's be honest, it's just more work for them to create new forms for Pokemon. Yes, exactly. It's just not Mega Evolutions. It's the pure laziness they display at times. Again, it's not laziness. It's that they cut corners where they can allow to cut corners to maximize their profits. They introduce shit and never build on it with the expectation of a few things. They think they can barely change. How many years has it been people still bitch about the GTS? Z-moves, gone. You like Pokemon following you, gone. You like Battle Frontier, gone. You like special side missions for mystical Pokemon, gone. You like the Dex Nav, gone. The online system from Gen 6, gone. Pokepalego Super Training is gone. Primal and Mega Evolutions, Ultra Beast, Pokemon Contest. Like the National Dex and being able to transfer Pokemon, gone. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you like Dynamaxing because that shit will be gone too in 3 years. Even Pokemon Refresh has been the one constant across Hoenn, Alola, Kalos, and now Galar, and even that has been watered down. In Kalos, you were able to have a little mini room for your Pokemon on the bottom screen and play mini games with them like puzzles and collecting berries. Instead of building on that, they removed the ability to decorate a room and play games with them. They just changed the suites and told you to have fun. Why are we pretending like people liked rotation or triple battles? It was like the worst feature in Gen 5. Okay. Doesn't it make you sad that Pokemon is a cash grab? Literally it's not relevant. Like, it's capitalism, dude. It's the gaming industry. Every game is in the end made to make money. And like, it's not like this is a new thing either. I read this a lot too, is that this has been a trend in Pokemon recently. It's not true. Have any of you played Gen 2? Have any of you seen or like realized how fucking like rushed Gen 2 is? How they just crammed Kanto into that game with no consideration? How literally Feraligator's name doesn't fit? How Typhlosion's base stats are 1-for-1 copied from Charizard? If they 1-for-1 copied Incineroar's base stats onto Scorbunny's final evolution, do you really think people will not freak out about that if that happened today? Gen 2 is insanely rushed because Pokemon was taking off and they needed to get out a new game as soon as possible to maximize their profits. This has always, always, always been a thing. Every single generation has had rushed like elements to it and things that people were upset about when the games came out. This is not a new trend whatsoever. They were space limitations. I'm not talking about space limitations. I would be the fact that they had to put Kanto into the game, an already developed region, points to the fact that Johto was incredibly underdeveloped, and there's a lot of things in that game that point to that. They were still trying to figure out how the programming of the games work. That doesn't have anything to do with anything. That doesn't mean that the level curve in Gen 2 isn't completely underdeveloped. That doesn't mean that Feraligator's name fits. That doesn't mean that they didn't lazily copy the base stats from one Pokemon into the other. I'm sure they're still trying to figure out challenges on how to pull off certain games on the Switch hardware. 100%. There's always trouble with game development. I'm obviously not thinking that Gen 2 and Pokemon Sword and Shield are the same, but I'm drawing a comparison because people are saying that games being rushed used to be different, and it's not. It's really not. Gen 5 and Heart Gold Soul Silver were developed at the same time. That's why you didn't have following Pokemon in Gen 5, because it was a feature that was being developed for Heart Gold Soul Silver, and they didn't know if that feature would be, like, if people would like that feature or not. If there's one constant software development, it's rushing to meet deadlines and failing. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, I think we're done with this. Let's play some video games. Saying they want more money isn't a fair motive. They need to deliver quality, but they don't. It all depends on what your company is about, right? If your branding is built upon like delivering quality games all the time, right? Then yeah, that's probably going to maximize your profits. But that's not the audience that Nintendo caters towards or has ever catered towards. Or at least with Pokemon games. I think Zelda games and Mario games are a little bit different in this.